From CRI Simple Numbers, this is Profitability Playbook, the Simple Numbers Podcast, a podcast for those championing market growth and anchoring the nation's economy, small businesses, and entrepreneurs.
Hey there. Welcome to another episode of the Simple Numbers Profitability Playbook Podcast. I'm Mike Maxon. That's Brandon Gray.
Hey.
I ain't gonna lie, man. If you're listening to this, you can't see me, but I got a mic. I'm checking out a Mike has a mic.
He is excited about it. He called me earlier to test it.
Yeah. Now we're trying to get official here. Yeah, we're trying to get official. So if this sounds great, we are definitely going to roll with Mr. BMG there, getting one. And yeah, we're taking the next level. Stay tuned for enhanced features over here from
stereo sound. No longer mono. It's stereo now.
Well, so, hey, I get to talk about football for once. How about my Cowboys pulling home a win, man? 64-yard field goal to tie it.
Makes the week so much better. No.
It does, yeah.
Monday after a loss. Yeah. Hey, you got Mastermind this week, too. So we got some big week ahead, some fun things, and I'm sure we're going to have some pretty good data to bring back to the podcast after we meet with our mastermind folks. So,
yeah, I mean, you want to talk about some movers and shakers in the entrepreneurial world. That is the makeup of that group and great insight into what's going on. Like there's guys that are tuned in. These are them. They're very thorough and intentional on understanding their market, the market in general. Customers, all that good stuff. So it's like it's an MBA class for sure this week.
Definitely.
We are going to talk about, are we in a recession or headed for a recession matter? We get tons of questions regarding the economy and what's going on in this, and mainly because we're just real connected with the small business world. You know, obviously we have about 350 clients across all industries, all across the U.S. And so we get the question asked a lot. And so, what today is we're going to touch on, are we headed for a recession? We are not economists, but we do just can speak in general to some things that give us some insight into, what the market is doing, what our client base is doing, and why we might think one way or another on it. So Brandon, kick us off.
All right. So let's lay the groundwork for where we're at, what we're seeing and hearing. And then we kind of can talk about a few of these and see, all right, is this temporary? Is this ongoing? Is this a sign that things are going to get worse? What are things that may happen that could give us a little bit of energy economically? So I made a little bit of a list, not in an order of importance, but just observations that we're seeing. So, right now and this has been for some time, whenever we have a client that has a team member leave, rarely are we seeing them replace them. Now, if they're in a key position to where, you have to have that person in order for operations to continue or sales to continue or those kind of things, yeah, they're replacing them. But folks are being really slow and very cautious about adding to their team. A lot of times someone leaves and they go, okay, we might use a contractor temporarily. We might use some part-time help. We're going to combine duties, but we're not going to add or keep payroll as it was. We're going to take advantage of the savings. So it's one thing we've been seeing for some time, continues. Secondly, consumer spending. I can't tell you the last time we had a conversation with a client where it was, especially in the retail industry or in the hospitality industry, to where they were saying, hey, consumer spending looks really good. We had an uptick. We're surprised. 9 times out of 10, we're lower than this time last year. Promotions, sales, discounts, whatever it may be, are not working quite as well as they once were. We're trying to figure out what people want, when they want it, and how we're going to tell them about it, which are pretty important parts if you're in retail. So that's a challenge. When we look at the 100 company model, we got July data last week. It's still flat as a pancake. And y'all have heard us say that probably since we started the podcast. I mean, profitability is just not changing. Very, very even. Had a little bit of a bump at the end of last year, and it has stayed flat since. We talked a couple episodes ago about if you're under $10 million, how you're seeing, even more challenging situation to where even top line for companies under 10 million is zero, 0% growth year over year. So that's a challenge. And then you start looking at some outside factors. So things like usage of temporary workers. I think it's down to 2001 levels. You look at the unemployment relative to the number of job openings, and I believe we have crossed over for the first time since pre-COVID, and there being more people available to fill openings than there are openings. They've been running anywhere from, hey, we've got a surplus of, 0.9, 0.7 or what have you, to now there's actually more jobs available than folks on unemployment. And we haven't seen that in some time. And then two, you look at things like building permits, single family building permits across the country. The national average is down 6% from this time last year. So as I'm going through that data, I'm not seeing a lot of things to indicate that the economy's cooking. That's for sure.
I always go on the side of sort of that eye test, and maybe I'm just naive on things, but I feel like when I go places and all right, everyone, listen, I'm not Mr. Fancy Pants over here. Okay. Like I feel like I operate in, what I'm saying is I'm not rich.
Just
and I don't operate, I think yeah. And I don't think I operate in any circles that wouldn't be what you would expect a normal middle-class American to see. I don't really, I personally don't feel like I walk into a lot of empty places where I think, Brandon, remember we were at it was like that conference we spoke at where it was like all those ice pods, all that stuff, the wellness conference. Remember we were in that area where it was like, and remember the economy was quote unquote bad at that time. That was years ago, but it didn't look like it. And so I have the eye test where sometimes you walk now, then you go and find out that we are in a massive debt personally and individually. Like we love the credit cards and loans in America for individuals. People are massively overspending and things like that. But just sometimes I wonder, I'm like, man, I just see people buying, people you talk to, they're spending money and obviously the overall data might tell otherwise, but a lot of times, you just walk around and you're like, man, I don't feel this like horrible situation sometimes. And that's just the eye test of what you see it.
Yeah.
But I then look at client data where a lot of people have gotten growth from price increases, have gotten growth from their own client base. There hasn't been a whole lot of new customer acquisition like it had been in previous years. And if you look at some of the earnings reports that have come out, we'll take, it was a couple ago, Home Depot was one where they talked about how, hey, our earnings were up, but our unit sales were down. And so they basically recovered their loss of business through price increases. And that's what a lot have done. And so when I see the prices going up across the board, it tells me that businesses not only have to cover the inflationary side of it, but are trying to recover earnings from lost business or people not spending as much money there. So my eye test, while I think it's good, might not be that good based on what I'm seeing when it comes to the client data, when it comes from seeing what companies are doing.
So let's define a recession. If you use, Google or what have you, and you put, what defines a recession in the U.S., you're going to get several different answers, but the most common definition is that you have 2 consecutive quarters of GDP decline. Now, I look at it under the Greg Crabtree definition of a recession for entrepreneurs, which is slightly different. If you have 3 consecutive declines in profitability on your rolling 12, so that would be three months in a row to where last year's profit was not as good. I'm sorry, where this year's profit was not as good as last year's when you look at that rolling 12. And so as we look at clients Now you paint it with a broad brush when you start doing this. There's a lot of folks who are in a recession by that definition. They're seeing that R12 data just slowly creeping down, creeping down, creeping down, creeping down. Now, once again, if you're above 10 million in revenue, not as likely, but still we run across several of them. And so what I'm seeing in the data most of the times is what I would refer to as a very spotty economy. You've got a couple businesses that are doing really well. They're in a necessity business or a high luxury business. They're plugging along, maybe not setting the world on fire, but they're doing well. And then you've got to counter that a handful of businesses who may not be as large, who are in a little bit more of a discretionary marketplace, that are seeing steady declines. And you put the two together, and that's the leveling that we've talked about before on the podcast. And so if you go by the Greg Crabtree definition, we've probably been in a recession since 2022. Generally speaking, Q1 of 2022, when interest rates started to go up, inflation started to really be felt, you started to see that switch flip. So, are we in a recession? I'd say for entrepreneurs, we've been in one, based on the data that I'm seeing.
And I also think too, we have some indication on the small business pain. And the reason why you see those companies over 10 million is because their need for overhead begins to become much lighter at that point. Meaning they've probably added a lot of their meat that's needed for scale at that time. And so when you have the sub $10 million businesses that are still trying to get there, when you run into inflation, interest rates, obviously the cost of capital goes up. You run into a much more sluggish growth, especially combine that with any dip in spending, or any dip in wage increases and things like that. You're looking at a much tougher thing. And I'm gonna say it on here. I don't know if we said it on here before, but we've talked about the black hole, and Greg had written about that in his book, and he was obviously spot on about it. Me and Brandon still have scars from going through it ourselves, but we inflation adjusted. That number's pushed up a lot. Now dollars aren't the same when Greg was talking about 1 to 5 million in 2010, I think, or 2009 when he began writing that book. And that number's pushed up a lot. We see a lot of companies at $5-6 million bucks in revenue, feeling that pinch that we once saw people feeling at 3-4 million. And when that happens, how they then handle economics, it becomes totally different. And that's why you have a swath that's maybe declining their marketing spend or declining overhead spend. That means all overhead, whether it's facilities, marketing, and all those things, subscriptions, whatever. And you'll always get Mike's take economically, because again, I'm not an economist, so I just think like the average person. I'm a finance guy of business, but on the economic side, the economy moves when businesses and people buy stuff. Stuff. Individuals are gonna have to buy food. They're gonna have to buy toilet paper. Those things are always gonna move. But when they're buying stuff, those extra dollars are flowing within the market. And right now, from a small business standpoint, when I'm talking to clients, people don't want to buy stuff right now. They're just moving with their business. They're going to add their employees when they need to. Those extra investments are not beginning to take place. Brandon, how do you feel about that additional investment into the business that companies are making? Do they seem like they're on your side, that they're pulling back a little bit, or a lot more tighter in that regard?
Good question. So it somewhat depends on the type of investment. And so if you're looking at head assets, whether that's, expanding the facility, increasing the vehicle fleet, buying equipment, machinery, those kind of things, very, very cautious. Now, most of the time, those have a debt component with them. And so when folks are considering is now the time and they're looking at interest rates likely declining, they're kind of going, may hold a little bit there. If they're reinvesting back into their business around systems and processes, tools, resources, software, whatever it may be, that are going to create efficiency, I would say there's still a pretty substantial reinvestment taking place there. Now, that level of reinvestment has declined because profitability is not as high as it once was. There's less dollars to reinvest, and those folks are not going and they're acquiring capital or borrowing dollars to make those investments. So, like I said, a little mixed in terms of the type of investment. I think everybody's wanting to look at it and go, hey, we need to invest in AI, and I don't disagree with that. And then they get to the point to where they're like, well, how do we do this? And that part just really hasn't been solved fully yet. It's coming, and you're going to see, I think, in the near term, substantial investments back into whether it's software resources that use AI or robots that use AI, those kind of things. That's coming, but I haven't seen it just yet.
And we will be getting a rate cut here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we will be getting a rate cut. That's going to happen.
And most likely, the consensus as I've brought it up on calls has been, if we get a quarter point, what behavior is that going to change? And most everybody kind of goes, meh, quarter point, it doesn't really change much. 1 point's what folks are looking for. I think there's a couple of keys there. So, for the first one, my prediction is just, which is wrong a lot. I'll give you that. But my prediction, given the mentality that we have seen in the past with the Fed, is they're going to be very, very cautious. And so they're probably going to say quarter point with the likelihood of further rate reductions. And the market's going to go, meh. And then the next time they cut another quarter, if they cut a half, so long as they're continuing the facts and the forecast with additional rate reductions, I think folks become a little bit more active and they're not quite as concerned. But if they pause on it, I think folks pull right back.
Hey, man, I'm bullish on 2026. My man, Micah, we always talk about him.
Yeah.
Our guy on our team. You ever want to talk to someone about economics? He's the man. So I steal his stuff sometimes. And I'm going to steal this one is I don't think they want to screw up the 250th anniversary of America, which happens in 2026. We also got the 25th anniversary of 9/11. It's also an election year.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, they're going to try to pull some strings to make it all look good, at least for a year. And so I'm bullish.
There's definitely political
What
motivation.
do we do about it? How do we handle it? If you're a small business right now and we are headed into a recession or, and I hate to say like, oh, let's recession proof your business. Gosh, I hate that. But, how about you just run it excellent all the time, and that'll take care of it. But, what do you think? What should we do about it?
Yeah, well, there's a few steps. So, and these apply generally speaking, whether we're in a recession or not. They're good practices. And then, there is a little bit of a slant saying, hey, if there is uncertain times ahead, I got to make sure that I'm prepared for that. So, you guys have heard us say it before. Get profitable with what you have. And when we say what you have, we mean your current level of gross margin and where gross margin's headed. One of my favorite sayings is, no one's coming to save you. So there's not going to be a magical, all of a sudden your business just picks up or this, that, or happens. I mean, you've got to get profitable with what you have. And I would say we're seeing much more of a mindset shift around this, but it's taken a while for entrepreneurs to kind of buy into just where we're at economically and likely headed. So if you go back in time, the exercise had typically been demand is growing, top line's growing, margin's growing. It's difficult to find people. I'm going to go ahead and add someone. And then if I build it, they will come. And that strategy worked really well. It was like clockwork, add the person, fill them into capacity, add the person, fill them into capacity. Now we've taken a little bit of a 180 from that to where if you add the person now, instead of it being 3 months until, you've got the margin dollars to fully cover them, it might be 6, 9, 12, 18 months. And so that pace has slowed down substantially. So, you got to adjust your thinking and your planning around that. And so that being said, I'm going to look at my salary cap back to the first simple numbers book. And for those that are not familiar with that, all we're looking at is gross margin minus profit target minus all operating expenses. That tells me what's available then to spend on salaries. And I've got to make the salaries fit within that cap. And so I'm going to find a way to operate profitably with where we are now. The next thing, the next two things I think are key. Cash is king. And one thing that we have seen is a lot of clients are still fairly well capitalized. I think it goes all the way back to the idle funds. Folks have held on to a lot of that in many cases. They're a lot of credit usage isn't super high, relatively speaking to what we've seen historically. Collections are not super slow. People have cash, and I want to keep it, because my war chest allows me to play another day if I have to. So I want to keep a close watch on cash and make sure that I'm hitting my core capital targets or really close to it. And the third thing is I got to play some offense. I can't just always play defense. And as you have competitors pull back, and I do hear about competitors going out of business, or you can tell they're on a shaky foundation. They're cutting prices. They're doing whatever they can to try to just generate a dollar. So I want to play some offense. It's a great time in many cases to look at my sales and marketing efforts and go, everybody else is going left. I'm going to go right. I'm going to invest into these. I'm looking at efficiencies. So with where your industry is going, where can I invest back into my business systems, processes, softwares, equipment, whatever it may be, to increase efficiency? So I'm playing a little bit of offense along the way, but I'm being very cautious about it. And when I say cautious, I'm designating a fixed amount of spend toward those efforts. So it's not just willy-nilly, let's try this, let's do this. I've got 50K, 100K, whatever it may be, that I'm willing to deploy to play offense with. And as I'm approaching, as I'm going through that spend and I'm approaching, hey, I'm 50%, 60% of spend. What have I seen? Am I making progress? Do I need to alter and adjust? And I've got to be very nimble. I've got to be very quick, especially in that journey. If something is working, I pour more fuel on the fire. The minute I see it stop working, especially from a business development and marketing standpoint, I got to change course.
I'm going to go with a different approach since you decided to discuss the P&L. Is continue to pay attention to those little metrics. We've talked about it before. Every business should have them. We have all the financial metrics in the world for things that we talk about, but those metrics of, hey, the number of calls, phone rings, bell noise, yeah, yeah, and also too is I was telling a client the other day, your days to close has really pushed, and last year you were projecting X amount of millions in dollars, you didn't hit it, and this year you're trying to get back there again, but your days to close is still pushed out, and so you're forecasting on times when you were closing deals within a week. Now it's 3 weeks or 2 weeks, whatever it is, well off from, well, guess what? It might take you a hot minute to get to that revenue target. It might not be feasible. So how does that relate to the money you're going to spend along the way and where you hit that profitability? Focus on more intermittent forecasting, right? Listen, don't just set that forecast for 12 months and put it in the drawer and never look at it again. You got to be moving quicker. And be more on top of those things that the employees look at, their availability, dare I say it, utilization. Like, man, they've got some availability I didn't know about.
Yeah,
We love that word, right?
Your eye test will deceive you on that one. So they may look busy, but are they
Yeah,
producing?
yeah.
Yeah. And I'd say one other thing going along those lines, creativity. What brings something new to the table, whether that's a new service offering, a new product, a different way of going about things. You got to be creative because, especially if you're in discretionary, if you're in a discretionary product or service offering, and you're not bringing something different than everyone else, folks just aren't going to buy.
I'm going to say that since you all are so awesome and you listen to this podcast and your business is doing phenomenal and you got all kinds of money, because people don't listen to this podcast and or don't work with us, maybe they're doing bad. Why don't you go buy them? Go buy somebody. Go buy that thing you need, right? You could have an opportunity in a market like this to snag somebody up. And remember, you heard it here first if you do it, but look for people that could be struggling, could have a hard time navigating these things, and they either want out willing to get a deal. They got one of those legs of the stool that's broken that you can go get, invest in, enter in another vertical or horizontal or whatever direction you want to call it, and go get you some of that. And that could be a real big opportunity for your business, a way to enter into a new market, a way to acquire more customers. I'm a fan of growth by acquisition if it's right. And so be on the lookout for that too. That's creative. That's bold. And there are always opportunities at times like these.
Yep. No doubt. And if you need help with that, let us know.
All right.
We can chat with you, run some numbers for you. Oh, by the way, we mentioned this last time. If you want to be on our mailing list, which we're sending some things out, special offer wise, back to creativity, Mike, special offer wise, some different things that we're throwing out there for podcast listeners, go to simplenumberscri.com and, you can join the mailing list there. We'll get you set up and rolling. So.
Heck yeah. Well, I appreciate everyone joining us again for another episode. We stay on top of it. Next one's going to be exciting because we'll have some mastermind stuff to talk about. So looking forward to having you join us then. For Brandon, I'm Mike, and y'all have a good one.
See y'all.
If you want to know more about driving sustainable profitability for your business or are interested in learning more about CRI Simple Numbers, please visit our website at simplenumberscri.com. Thanks for listening to this episode of Profitability Playbook, the Simple Numbers Podcast. You can subscribe to Profitability Playbook on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. If you like what you heard today, please leave us a review. This podcast is brought to you by CRI Simple Numbers LLC, a division of CRI Capital Group LLC, and a subsidiary of CRI Advisors LLC. CRI is the trusted brand under which Carr, Riggs & Ingram LLC, the CPA firm, and CRI Advisors LLC, along with its subsidiaries, deliver professional services. Please note, Carr, Riggs & Ingram LLC is a licensed independent CPA firm offering attest services, whereas CRI Advisors LLC and its subsidiaries specialize in providing tax and business consulting services. These entities operate within an alternative practice structure as defined by the AICPA Code of Professional Conduct and comply fully with applicable laws, regulations, and professional standards. Ready to simplify your business finances and drive growth? Explore valuable resources, books, and tools designed for entrepreneurs and small businesses at simplenumberscri.com.